This is Geek Gab, the Geekerific Gabfest with your hosts, Dornall, Brian Niemeyer, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are at Geek Gab every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 1 hour of all fun, no work, bringing you anything and everything that we can for fan culture, for geek culture, anything geekish goes. Unfortunately, it looks like as if one of our co-hosts is either not going to be here or is running just a touch late. So I'm going to pause for mere moments and allow Dornall to say hi.
Hey everybody, it's good to be here at the Gab. So my question is, if Brian Niemeyer's late today, does he bring pizza, and if so, is it free?
I don't think that matters in this situation where he's in one part of the country and you're in another and I'm in a third. Pizza is kind of hard to enjoy like this, so...
I think then it's important that we further develop our internet network infrastructure so that we can enable such sharing.
Where they could deliver pizza.
That reminds me, have you seen this new thing? Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Twitch TV.
Yes.
And people playing games online and Let's Plays and watching other people play. There's also a phenomenon, I don't remember talking about this, but people eating online.
Oh, yes. Oh, God.
It's big in actually Korea and a little bit in Japan. They've got the same sort of thing where they have Twitch TV style personalities, except they just show themselves enjoying a meal on the internet. It's really strange. So with that in mind, Brian, when can we expect to see your online meals?
No.
Oh, I think I'm gonna kiss and tell that easily.
No. I will not be tuning in for that. No. I have opinions on that, but I don't know if I want to say them. I mean, all my opinions are going to be pretty insulting at this point, so I'm trying to be polite. Am I not allowed? Am I not supposed to be polite? Is that part of the entertainment factor of listening to podcasts? People are not polite, and that's why they listen, is you don't censor yourself. Because my response to that sort of whole phenomenon is, are you guys nuts? What, don't you have better things to do with your time? And then we'd have some asshole somewhere jumping in and saying, you can't say that. That's so mean. That's so rude. That's so judgmental. That's so racist. They have their own culture. They have their own culture. That's fine. But this one specific piece is a stupid-ass part of culture. And I don't understand it. I really don't. In fact, I will be honest. Even Twitch, other than watching it for like reviews to see if you like how a game is played, even Twitch is one step beyond my understanding of why you would find that interesting. Call me a bigot.
You racist. You're racist against video games.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, what makes Twitch interesting, and if you know me, you know that I actually don't like watching people play video games. Like, I've played games with people, my wife's one of them, who, when I'm playing a game, I'll say, hey, do you want to play now? Do you want to switch off? And she'll say, no, I don't mind watching. This is cool. This is interesting. I'm not that person. I get bored or antsy when I'm not actually taking turns at the game. But when it comes to Twitch, I watched and I learned a lot about a competitive game like Hearthstone, where there's lots of things to learn about the game, lots of new different card interactions and everything. And so part of the fun is discovering that for yourself, but then watching other people play and the way they think and the way they play actually kind of interesting and eye-opening.
See, I occasionally watch YouTube videos of like, here's how you do this particular jump in Grand Theft Auto 5 when I was going for 100%. By the way, finally got 100% Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Xbox One. That makes 3 platforms 6 times.
Shame on you.
I had played through Grand Theft Auto 5 6 times. But I mean, I watch it on YouTube. I go to the YouTube, and they'll say, okay, here's jumps number 1 through 10, because you have to get 25 of the 50 to get 100%. If you get all 50, you get a special achievement, but if you get 25 of the 50, that qualifies for 100%. So you watch them just to find out where they are and what are some good techniques for going off this particular jump. So I could see watching Twitch for the same reason. That makes perfect sense.
Indeed.
I could also see watching Twitch if the host is, at least for a little while, if the host is unusually attractive. That might convince me to watch Twitch for a little bit.
There's a few of them that are like that. Of course, I watch mostly Hearthstone, and then you can tell which of the players are there because they're good. And if you start watching streams, you can tell which of them are popular because they have interesting personalities or they're fun to watch. And then you can tell which ones are there just because they're pretty and Hearthstone is a popular game and they're just maximizing viewers.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't shock me at all. I don't find that offensive, but apparently some people do. And really, if you find it offensive that people like to watch attractive people, you are either really, really easily offended, or you're so stupid that you haven't been paying attention to the last 50 years of television and movies, or maybe longer if you want to go back to, silent movies, which is 100 years ago. If after a century of movies you haven't clued into the fact that people like having attractive female and male leads in a movie, to where the phrase movie star is 100% consonant with physical attractiveness, if you haven't clued into that after 100 years, then there is honestly something wrong. You are missing the boat somewhere. You need to step back and think, maybe it's not them, maybe it's me.
Well, that requires some degree of self-awareness and introspection. That's just too much to ask.
But does that shock you that, movie stars are physically attractive, generally speaking, unless they're character actors? Is that shocking? Does that surprise you now that I've introduced that concept into the discussion?
Does the sun rising in the east shock me?
See, normal people know this. They're not offended by this because they understand. You want to see people who are attractive, and you can take it too far because I have criticized that before. But it's not an extreme or new situation to Twitch. So, I don't understand getting upset at that.
Me neither. And it's not going to stop.
That's something I learned a long time ago. That was a very disheartening thing to learn, is that people in the human race wouldn't stop doing stupid things just because I could logically and perfectly and accurately explain to them exactly how stupid the thing they were doing or feeling or thinking or saying was. Just because they knew how stupid it was doesn't mean they would change, and just because they heard how stupid it was doesn't mean they would understand and agree. Though I became much happier once I learned that, because then I just wrote the rest of the human race off. I just said, okay, I'm done with trying to persuade you people to do anything. Do whatever you want. I'll give my opinion, and if you like it, fine, and if you don't, live your life. It's not my problem anymore. It was a big day for me. And suddenly the show goes silent. Oh, Brian, by the way, has left us again. He needs to fix his connection. So is there a particular Hearthstone host you have found interesting or useful?
Yeah. So, and they're across all the spectrums, right? So, the guy who's just good at the game, probably the most popular Hearthstone streamer is named Trump. And it's just, he's your stereotypical geeky Asian guy, lives in California, and he just plays the game really well. He doesn't play any music on stream. He doesn't have much of a personality at all. He's just really good at the game. He explains everything that he does, and you learn a lot, and you see a lot of great play from him.
See, that actually, you know what? That is really useful. That's why you would watch him. That's why it would make it compelling, is that if he explains everything he's doing, that means that not only is he good, but he knows why he's good. He's good consciously, and he's thought through it enough to be able to teach other people. That takes a lot of effort, actually. That takes a lot of mental organization. And most people, even people who were good, wouldn't put in the effort to become knowledgeable and conscious enough of why they were good to be able to teach it to other people.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. There's other guys that are good too, people that are a little more entertaining, you know, a little less skilled, a little more entertaining. One of the guys is named Raynad, and he's a lot of fun to watch because he's mean and snarky and everything. And he's a good player, but he's not a great player. So, and he's also the self-professed unluckiest player alive. And so whenever the dice don't go his way, you see him raging on stream and everything. It's more of a seething rage. So he's one of those guys that's great to watch just because he's a wise ass and he's fun to listen to and watch.
He's witty?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else you might recommend?
And not really. It depends on what type of game you like to play. If you like the arena stuff, which is sort of like a draft game, then you would watch Trump or Raynad. Not Raynad. Who does another good arena streamer? Kriparian. He is in an Asian server or European server, and so he plays way late night. He's great to watch. And he's also probably the second most popular streamer in terms of viewers. If you like the constructed play, then maybe you watch Kriparian or Kolento. Kolento's a European guy. He's like from the Ukraine. And he's kind of similar to Trump. He doesn't have like a bubbly personality and everything. He just plays something like 12 hours a day all the time. He's literally one of the best players in the world. So
wow.
And which is funny, I heard a story about when he started streaming Hearthstone. He said, he apologized to his audience, something like, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm not that great because I'm still a professional World of Tanks player, so I can only play Hearthstone 8 hours a day. Sorry, guys." But these people can live on that. This is their job. This is their full-time job. They all make, or the popular ones make a living off of it. It's not a great living, but they can buy food and pay rent. So,
which a lot of jobs you don't get. A lot of jobs you don't get that with. So, oh man, I'm just
like writing.
Yeah, writers. Whoo, boy. You better learn how to, chew water as a writer because unless you're one of the very, very fortunate few, you're not going to be a billionaire. Or fortunate one.
Yeah, I've heard from a few places that they're about an equal number of people who make a living by writing fiction as who play Major League Baseball for a living.
I remember the last time I read this on Larry Correa's blog, he mentioned, like, about 1,200 professional writers that were actually working professional writers. And so it's a teeny tiny community. That's why if you want to be a writer, you can't say things bad about other writers' works because they'll know, and they'll know who you are, and they'll know exactly who you are because there's 1,200 of them. That's a tiny town. I live in a small town, and that is a quarter the size of the town I live in. So, yeah, 1,200 people, that is not a lot. That's small for a high school. So, yeah, you're not allowed to crap on other authors by name. So, I want to have Brian say hi because he's been and did you pot yourself down for some reason? He's all silent now in the control. I don't know why. Anyway,
Barely hear you guys. Can you hear me?
now we can. Okay.
Yeah,
I had an engineer lined up, folks. I had an engineer lined up, someone who would watch all this stuff and take care of it, and they were ready to go, and we got everything put together. They were added as a manager on the page so they could set this all up and run it, so I didn't have to worry about this, so I could focus on, having an opinion and saying it and actually providing you with interesting and or useful information. And they contacted me last night and said they wouldn't be able to make it, and for a really good reason. This is not a flake out. This is a really good reason. We did like 3 test streams last week, and he set up and ran like 15 or 20 other streams on his own just to make sure he could launch them and get them running and knew how the controls worked. He was working his ass off to be here as an engineer, and I appreciate it deeply because he's doing it on an all-volunteer basis. And then last night, he wasn't able to make it for good reason, and I'm like, oh, son of a... You should be here next week.
Sounds good.
To get this running. So how has your week been, Brian?
Oh, excellent. Got a lot of work done. Got some great feedback on that novel I was editing for a buddy online. He really liked it. Gave me the best compliment that an editor can get, which is that not only was I able to put my finger on problems that he'd only intuited with the book but couldn't really articulate, so I articulated those, but he agreed that 99% of the fixes that I prescribed would actually improve the book, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's great.
Plus I got to do some retro gaming. One of my buddies from the Drunken Zombie podcast won an eBay auction for a Turbo Duo system. That's the TurboGrafx 16 from Japan with the attached CD-ROM, so it's kind of like the Sega CD, only better.
Only better, he says. Harsh.
It's better. Trust me.
I was a big Sega fanboy back in the day.
Oh, nothing against Sega, but this is just better. But anyway, I cede the floor.
What game have you been playing with him?
All of them. Because he also got like a flash card that has every single Turbo Duo game ever, Japanese and American.
Nice.
Yeah, so I couldn't even name all of them, but we were playing some kind of. Oh, it was called it wasn't Dystopia. It was something like that, but it was basically a Zelda clone. But it came out between Zelda 2 and before A Link to the Past. But so it's this kind of hybrid, more than 8-bit, but not quite 16-bit, top-down Zelda game. So like you've got a character who can stab a sword in 4 directions, and he's walking around on a top-down world map. But it looks like a weird prototype version of Link to the Past, kind of, and it plays really well. So it's interesting that someone else, not Nintendo, kind of extrapolated and were brushing their fingers against the next big thing and perhaps didn't know it.
Okay.
Look at what it's called. On SNES, we actually managed to get a hold of X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, which was the X-Men game that no one played because most of the other X-Men games for Nintendo systems had sucked before then. This one was done by Capcom and the same people who did Mega Man X, so it's awesome.
Oh yeah, easily one of the best games of its era.
Yeah, you played it before?
Actually, Mega Man X is what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay. And I don't blame you because no one played Mutant Apocalypse because the X-Men name on Nintendo had been so tarnished by that point, by like Arcade's Revenge and whatnot. But no, it's amazing. You know, you can select your X-Man and do missions on Genosha, and like you can tell that the same music team that worked on Mega Man did this. For example, this.
Oh no, I
This
never
one?
played that one.
I recommend giving it a shot. I would highly recommend it, actually.
I am I'm a gaming bigot. I like my games the newest and best with the nicest graphics. I'm the kind of people that make make longtime purists who love old games really, really mad because they're like, when they yell about people chasing eye candy and how much that takes away from gameplay because they don't spend time and money on other fundamentals of the game, I'm the kind of player they're blaming, and I don't give a rat's ass.
You buy Madden every year, don't you?
No, actually, I don't.
Oh, good. Okay.
I don't like sports games, generally speaking.
All right, then we can be friends. We're cool. Whatever else you say.
But I loved Gears of War. I thought Gears of War was a fun series. I bought all of them. And what sold me on the first one was it looked amazing. It looked awesome. I was stunned. So I said, sign me up for that. And luckily, it actually had good gameplay, too. Not perfect gameplay, but good gameplay, and that was good enough.
I've got an interesting perspective on that, I think. Because, first of all, I certainly can't blame anyone for being attracted to a game with excellent graphics. I mean, it's just pretty. So there's nothing wrong with pursuing beauty. That's great. However, on the other hand, when it comes to the game aspect, I've got a bit of a controversial opinion, which is the more photorealistic and the more like real life a game is, the less it is actually a game. And more like I would call what's coming out today more like either interactive movies or just simulated realities. But I think of, okay, Monopoly as a game, chess as a game, something you do not necessarily feel immersed in chess or even Pac-Man. So I think that the old 2D video games really do fit more comfortably into the category of game than what's coming up now, mostly. But, AAA titles.
Here's my response to that.
Sure.
The closer you get to the graphics capabilities of consoles being able to approximate photorealistic images, the less you should try to make photorealistic games. This is what I call the Pixar theory. Pixar's movies are perfect not because they strive to emulate reality in every detail, but because they have a strong animation style that is unique to their studio. When you watch The Incredibles or Ratatouille, you're not getting mice, rats, or people that look exactly like real human beings. You're getting an artistic style. It is unreal and deliberately so, because it's part of the uncanny valley, which means the closer and closer you get to approaching photorealism but fall short of it, the more unrealistic your figures look. You need to stop just short of the uncanny valley, find some kind of artistic feeling to your game, and go for it, run with that artistic feeling, and build all your graphics around that. So you're not trying to make it photorealistic, you're trying to make it like a beautiful painting that is animated in 3D. And all of my dislike for BioWare aside, This is something they did perfectly with Mass Effect and with their fantasy series, whose name I can't remember. Dragon Age, excuse me. If you look at Mass Effect, every single element of that world is built to have a graphical sameness, similitude that resonates. The angles on the curves of a Geth versus the angles on the curves of the Normandy versus the angles on the curves of the logo. And this is not an accident. This is not me pulling stuff out of my ass. If you listen to the making of videos, they explicitly talk about this. It makes it look like a 70s sci-fi polished up with higher tech. And so they established a distinctive feel for the universe based on the graphics and didn't have to pursue photorealism. They just had to pursue this gorgeous, curved, unique graphic style for their game.
Yeah, and that distinction between design and style you just pointed out, I think completely correctly, by the way, segues nicely into something that was discussed as a possible topic, which is the recent furor over DC's decision to pull a Batgirl comic book cover. Have either of you read Eric Larson's interview that he gave partially about that?
No.
No.
Okay, well, it might work better if I let you guys set up what you originally wanted to talk about, because I read through the material he gave me, and Larson has an interesting counterpoint to the story that's kind of gained traction and run wild in the media. He has an alternate take. I think that would work out better as kind of a counterpoint.
Okay. I don't know. I tweeted out the link to this in our chat room so that you guys can take a look at it. I think, this is my opinion, and this was my emotional reaction when I first saw the cover before I knew anything about the controversy. So this is just a report of what happened to me. I looked at this image, and for the first time since I've been reading comics, I felt a flash of fear thinking about the Joker. He seemed genuinely threatening, genuinely menacing, and actually fearsome as a character. Because Batgirl has on her face a look of absolute terror. She is utterly terrified. And her terror as a character makes me feel fear at the same thing that terrified her. And so I thought this was one of the most emotionally evocative covers I have ever seen. I thought it was a brilliant piece of comic art. And when it comes to comic books, you should know I'm a dabbler. I don't read everything. I read select pieces. But this particular image was brilliantly done, and the artist who did it should have been praised to the skies. This should have been a cover for the ages and not the source of a controversy. Then I found out it was controversial, and I was really annoyed. So
I had a similar reaction to the whole thing. When I saw the cover, I thought, wow, it was evocative. That's what it was. I felt the same sort of thing. I was like, wow, that's pretty scary. That's what artists aim to do. They aim to evoke the sorts of the feelings with their work. So I mean, he did his job. That's a great cover. That's what I thought. And yeah, it's meant to be disturbing. That's what he's trying to evoke there.
And here's the thing. I spent 5 hours yesterday flipping through art on one website and on DeviantArt, looking for pieces that evoked the feel of some settings I'm building. And then looking through them, downloading the ones that worked, moving on past the other ones. In 5 hours, I didn't find a single piece. And I looked at literally hundreds of different pieces, some landscapes, some portraits, some action scenes. I didn't find a single piece that was as evocative as this variant cover.
Well, you know, that kind of illustrates a rule that I've noticed. I can never find anything on DeviantArt if I'm specifically looking for it. I always stumble across something.
Isn't that the truth? Oh.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm not just
I,
entering. Sorry.
I didn't have a chance to finish the search. I just started, but I put in a really, really obscure, you've probably never heard of it ever, a really, really obscure search term that I thought would probably bring a lot of good stuff, but I could hardly find anything. It was steampunk. Steampunk. I was looking for good steampunk art, and what I got was a lot of cosplays. Which isn't bad, and I'm not saying the costumes are bad, but I'm looking for like airships and city scenes and action scenes and stuff like that, not just people standing around in costume. And it was so obscure. Steampunk. Yeah, but we're off topic. Sorry. Let's get back on topic.
My fault.
So that was my reaction. That was Dornall's reaction. And then
That was my reaction.
What happened next? I don't know if you want to talk about this with your piece. What happened next is the artists themselves asked DC Comics to withdraw it after people got angry and called it hateful and sexist and whatnot. And then the gentleman who wrote the issue said that the reason why was that people were getting death threats without providing any substantiation of the claim.
Okay, so I'm glad that story came out, because here's what Eric Larson says. For the few people out there who don't know, Eric Larson created Savage Dragon, worked for Marvel for years, became one of the founding members of DC Comics, is now like the head of his own studio, so he doesn't have to take guff from nobody. He is one of those rare artists who can say what he wants and really not suffer negative repercussions, and thank God for that. So his understanding, he says, this story is widely misreported. It is my understanding that DC commissioned the cover, and that once it was in the creative team saw it, that they raised an objection to it. They didn't want it on their book because they thought it was an inappropriate cover given the tone of the title. The artist heard what they had to say and came to agree with their point and had it pulled. It was not a case of an online backlash causing it to be withdrawn, so it wasn't censorship per se. It was only shared afterward.
Huh.
But that's not what the team said.
Okay, the team said something else?
Yeah, the actual writer of the book, the actual writer of the Batgirl book, says that the reason why they pulled it was because people were receiving death threats over the controversy.
The thing I'm wondering is, how are they receiving death threats? Because the issue hadn't come out yet, right?
Right.
They never released it. Yeah, so how did they even know about the image?
Because the image went viral after people started getting upset. It was posted as part of previews. People saw it online, got upset about it on Tumblr, and I'm sorry, I completely...
No, you're fine.
It's impossible for people listening to this to get to see the look of absolute exhaustion I just gave the screen because of Tumblr. Of course it's Tumblr. It has to be Tumblr. It's always Tumblr. Someone got upset about it at Tumblr. Their upset went viral. People started getting upset about it on Twitter, and the next day or the day after that, they pulled it.
Right. So here's what Larson said, though. Like, and this is a quote. He said, ideally, we would never have known that cover existed. Editorial would have shown the cover to the creative team, and they would have made their feelings known, and it would have vanished before it ever appeared. We'd have never known about it. Given that DC shared the image immediately, they did the best they could with it. Frankly, I think it was in questionable taste, given the nature of the book. I support the artist and the decision. So he's given a little insight into the interior workings of a comic book editorial team, which he's infinitely familiar with, and he says the way it works is they commission the cover design, the cover designer submits it to editorial, looks it over, and when they're satisfied, they show it to the creative team on the book, and the creative team on the book can give their input. And according to Larson, it was killed at that stage, that the creative team rejected it for thematic reasons, and then DC decided to put it online anyway.
Wow, did they say why? Do we know why?
They said it didn't fit with the the tone and feel of the book.
No, I'm sorry. Why did they release it anyway?
No, apparently that was some sort of mistake on their part. So I don't know.
Okay, well,
that's just one side. That's Eric Larson's side, but I think it's an interesting alternate testimony. I don't know.
So not even outraged at all. DC just said, this doesn't work. Let's not. Someone on the creative team said, no, that doesn't work with the issue, and DC released it anyway.
The person who said it was an issue of integrity is the writer, Cameron Stewart.
Okay.
He's also the person who said, I'm sorry, I don't have these tweets in front of me. If I had these tweets in front of me, it would be easier.
Well, I remember the integrity one. Yeah.
He's the one who said that people were receiving death threats, but it wasn't the artist or him at DC. And it may have been the artist who said that, who asked for it to be pulled back. And DC didn't announce that it was pulled back until the artist asked for it, and this all happened in public after the controversy had been running for a day or so.
Okay, so Larson could have his timetable mixed up. That is possible.
I think the other link I just posted in our chat, that I'm going to be putting both of these in the description, so don't worry about it, is to... He's talking about artistic integrity. This is an article about 12 covers, although really it's actually like 11 covers, or variant covers that actually went out on comics that were more violative of integrity than the Batgirl one. And without directing this at the artist or directing this at the writer, I will say this. Many of the people who are angry at the cover are not themselves readers of this comic. And the reasons why they were angry at the cover were not because it didn't match the lighthearted, more comedic tone of Batgirl. And many of the claims were false. They were claiming that, well, Batman would never be pictured on a cover as vulnerable, as victimized, as Batgirl is in this cover. Whereupon people on the internet posted, I would like to be able to say hundreds, thousands. I saw 7 or 8 different covers from many different eras of Batman where he was in worse situations than this. It is not about being offended over this, like being offended that people prefer or enjoy, if not prefer, enjoy attractive Twitch hosts, is a mistake, because this is not an offensive cover. It's a variant cover. It's not the primary cover. And there were a number of variant covers solicited for this issue, all of which featured the Joker. And being uh, being offended by this is a bit silly because there's nothing, in my opinion, nothing offensive about this. If you make it a law, an artistic law, that female characters can't ever be intimidated by villains, then what you have just done is banned female characters from being anything but Mary Sue's.
Right.
It's a mistake.
It is, and lest you give the misinterpretation that Eric Larson supports the people who are whining to have this cover removed. He's not. His claim is just that it wasn't the claims of death threats and the furor over the cover that got it pulled. He admits that happened, but says it happened after the fact, and it wasn't involved in the decision to pull it. That it was pulled, and then people went out of their minds over the apparent sexism and misogyny of the cover afterward. But he does say, where will this lead? Well, if history is any indication, it can lead to something like the Comics Code Authority in the 50s, where a group of outraged individuals policed everything we read.
We are hitting, in many, many areas of popular culture, a wall of censorship that it is no longer enough for people to say, I have specific needs or desires in art, books, movies, TV, whatever, that are not being met. And I would like people to address underserved markets. That is no longer the issue. It is now an issue of people saying this specific work, for whatever reason, offends me, and I want it censored. I want it gone. However they decide to enforce that, their demand is that artistic works either be altered to fit with their perceptions or claims, or just be shut down. And I find this angering on so many levels.
Right, it's infuriating. It really is.
Yeah, you said it. You know what? I've said a couple times in this show, superhero comics are terrible. I hate comics. The Comics Code Authority is part of the reason why. They never really grew up. The only books I've really read and I've got Watchmen, right? I like Alan Moore stuff where he just tore all that stuff down.
Yeah, well said.
I'm trying to dig out some form of deeper opinion than that. But here's the thing. The only deeper opinion I can proffer is this. Censorship is a form of enslavement. It is making the artist work to your demands for no reason other than you demand them. These people are not paying money. They're not offering to pay money to get what they want. They're just demanding that other people produce what they want. And that is literally slavery. To demand that someone else work for you without any form of payment is slavery. Or at least it's the demand that someone become your slave. And it took hundreds of years of strife and war for the notion that there should be an inherent freedom of speech and an inherent freedom of the press. Centuries of strife before we realized this, that if you silence a dispute or a disagreement, you ensure sooner or later that it will turn violent. Because if people care enough, and if they're passionate enough, and if there is no other recourse, and you push on them hard enough, things will get violent. I'm talking about real censorship now, not, no, I'm not going to give you money to make that. That's not censorship. After seeing all of this, we realized that planting the seeds of internecine warfare was foolish, and that people have a right to state their opinion, and that all of society benefits when people are free to make speeches, when people are free to publish newspapers and books, when people are free to produce plays or symphonies, or nowadays albums, TV shows, movies. Society benefits when people are allowed to do things, and banning that, stopping that, is turning the clock back to the 1500s. It's turning the clock back to the 1200s. It's turning the clock back to when there was not a pluralistic society. And that is damaging, and it is destructive, and it is foolish, and it will have long-term consequences, many of which will rebound on those demanding it. So if you wanted to ask, do I have a deeper opinion other than censorship is wrong, my deeper opinion is based on why censorship is wrong. It's wrong because we have rights, inalienable rights that adhere to us because we're human beings, but it's also wrong because it undermines the basis of a civil society where we can talk out problems without shooting each other in the face. And if you want to return to the days of Oliver Cromwell, if you want to return to the days of the French Revolution, if you want to return to the days that didn't happen in this country, but happened in Europe, in Soviet Russia with the gulags, or Nazi Germany, then by all means, make censorship a policy of the government, because those are the kinds of days that you are inviting. That's it for me.
And, and on a lighter note, on the stuff that we like to enjoy, let's not limit what people can create. Let's not stifle innovation and creativity, which is what we're doing. We don't want that.
That sounds like a good wrap-up.
Yeah, just to amplify one point Daddy Warpig made. Ironically, if the finger-wagging scolds had their way in all things, we would end up in many ways less tolerant and open-minded toward dissenting ideas than the 1200s were, because in the university system, they relied on the process of disputatio, where two people would pick a topic and argue opposite sides to the best of their ability, and really nothing was off sides. And you can't even do that in universities anymore.
No. Yeah, there's a new story, or at least a post that came out today or yesterday discussing that. I haven't had a chance to see it. I was working all day yesterday, but they are demanding that universities be places where you're not allowed to debate things, where students shouldn't be challenged on their viewpoints.
Yeah. Because, no one invented a famous method of teaching philosophy where questions were asked back and forth and people were asked to challenge their a priori convictions or anything. I'm sure it'll work just fine.
Hey, they killed that guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. Fear of death is the ultimate motivator for learning. They need to do that.
Yeah, we need more of that. We need more of that survival. College should be survival of the fittest. We should have death should be the penalty for failure, not having to go home and live off your parents. That'll teach them real quick.
You should run for office.
I feel like a Vulcan on the Enterprise. Like you're on an entire ship of people who are crazy, and you don't know quite how to explain to them why they're crazy, or if you want to reverse it.
Or perhaps you feel like Dark Helmet on Spaceball 1. Sorry to interrupt, but I just thought of that.
I mean, I have no idea how to sit down with someone who seriously believes that they have the right to never be disagreed with in an entire university career. I don't even know where to begin explaining to them how monumentally and egregiously wrong they are. It's stunning. It's astounding.
Well, you can't, because there's no baseline of agreed upon standards or values that you can start from. So all you can really do is argue to the peanut gallery, to the undecideds who are sitting on the fence.
Yeah, point out at someone and say, "He's an asshole," like Marty McFly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight him. He's an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Hit the nail on the head. You're never going to convince people who sent death threats over that Batgirl cover. They are really beyond anything but knee-jerk sentiment. So just hold them up as objects of ridicule and as a warning to others, and move on.
And ridicule works much better than anything else, doesn't it? I mean, what do you do when you deal with racists or Nazis or whatever?
I make fun of them.
Laugh at the devil and he shall fly from thee.
Like, people who hate Twitch TV or, comic book superheroes. Just mock them.
Oh. All right, well, that's enough seriousness for today, especially for a show that is, at its core, most of the time supposed to be not so serious.
Damn it, Daddy Warpig. You promised no work, all fun.
I know.
Why so serious, Daddy Warpig?
Oh. All right, folks. We have about 6 minutes left in the show. Do we have anything in the comments that is particularly interesting that we can talk about in 6 minutes? Any questions we can answer real quick?
I've indirectly brought up most of their points so far. We do have a question from Nathan Housley, though. He asks about don't read white male authors for a year. I
have some good suggestions. If you don't want to read white male authors, you should check out Larry Correia, who is, in point of fact, Portuguese and therefore in America not white. You should check out Sarah Hoyt, who is both a woman and Portuguese, and so she checks off 2 of those boxes. I have heard it said that the infamous Vox Day is, in point of fact, Indian Native American. And so reading his books is, again, not reading a white male. And so those are just my 3 suggestions for this week. If you like, we can try to look into this and see if there are other non-white, non-male authors who might also fit the bill. Do you guys have any suggestions?
I don't read.
1 second. I know there was a list. Superversive SF.
Okay, we'll give you a second to look at the list. And let me say this.
Take my word for it. Sorry.
I just read and have been reading a white male author all week. And the series started off really good, but the last book basically said it's a book, the entire series is set in a universe that's loosely inspired by the Cthulhu mythos. And his very first major point in the last book was that the only people who ever become cultists are people from this specific political group. That they're the only people who ever become cultists. And that therefore, all of the other people who aren't part of this one political group are safe. And I about threw the book across at the wall. The only reason I didn't is because it's an ebook and it's on my iPhone, and I thought that probably there was a good chance, a better than even chance, if I threw my iPhone against the wall with the vehemence that I was feeling, that I might possibly damage a piece of equipment worth several $100s. So I couldn't do it. Instead, I read the rest of the book because I had already bought it and paid money, so I figured I might as well get my money's worth. And I'd pay money for the next one, so I had to read the next one. I'm reading the next one too. But yeah, white male authors apparently. And this is a white male author who supported the don't read white male authors dictate. Apparently they love pointing at political opponents and saying, those people would worship Cthulhu, but no one in my side would.
Yeah.
Do you have any other suggestions?
Yes, I found the list, and I put a link to it in our chat. So you already get the highlights of Sarah, Larry, and Vox, but also El Jaji Lamplighter, who is a female author. She's also my editor, so just want to get any conflict of interest out of the way.
Wife of Stephen Wright, who we had on the show several weeks ago.
Yeah, John. Yep.
John Wright, sorry.
That's good. Then we have Tom Simon, who is differently abled, because we also don't want to be guilty of ableism. We have Lloyd A. Beam, who is differently abled. It's B-E-H-M. Cedar Sanderson. Jason Cordova, who is a gentleman of color. James Young. Kate Polk. And Amanda Green. So that'll keep you busy all year.
Okay. Those are some writers. If you wish to look at people who are not white and not male, I'm going to drop those links into the description so that you can access them after the show. We are, at point of fact, out of time, so I'll give you guys a last chance to say anything else you might have to say.
Hey guys, thanks for listening in. I also have my own Twitch TV channel, but I never use it.
Outstanding.
Anything else to say, Brian?
Yes, really quickly, just want to make one more excellent point that I thought Eric Larson made very well, which is there's a difference between design and style. And Larson just feels that these people go around complaining, ordering artists to change superhero costumes, really don't get that it doesn't necessarily matter how a piece of clothing or a character is designed when the artist can use style to convey strength or weakness or dignity or sexism. So he just thinks that they're firing at the wrong target, and I tend to agree with him. He backs up his assertions with some examples of Wonder Woman that I think are pretty convincing. So,
all right. And I have put a link to that article as well in the liner notes in the description. We are out of time, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This has been Geek Gab, the Geekerific Gabfest, with your hosts, Brian Nehemiah, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. We're here every Sunday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have blogs. They're in the description. We have Twitter accounts you can follow. Those are in the description. Please, if you like the show, click the upvote or subscribe. You can listen. You can read me, Daddy Warpig, at daddywarpig.com. Once again, that's daddywarpig.com. We are your hosts. We are signing off, and we will be back.